the biblical God, the God of the Bible, Yahweh, does not exist. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that there is no God of some sort. I don't see any good reason to think so, but I'm not claiming absolute universal knowledge. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that I know for a fact that there is no divine realm or divine entity. But I am saying that the biblical God in particular, just like Zeus, just like Apollo or Mithras or Demeter, this is not this is not a real living entity. This is quite plainly a fictional character.
All right, welcome everybody. Mark Peralta here with another episode of Apostate of Mind, and today we're going to do something slightly different. I've got a very special guest with me today. His name is Derreck Bennett, and I'm so excited to have him here. I'm actually a huge fan of his work because I feel like in this context, it's easy to like just get very academic and very serious about things. And Derreck, you've got this very special spice that just puts a spin to everything, and it's just funny and but very informative. He's very passionate about what he does, and I'm just so super excited to have him here to share with us his story and sort of like where he comes from and his background and why he does what he does. And so, without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Derreck Bennett.
Hello. I like that introduction. I have spice.
You've got that secret sauce.
I'm a spicy meatball. That's I like that.
Derreck Bennett, I found you through YouTube, and you've got a channel there called Atheologica. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what do you do with this channel for those that are watching this episode not knowing who you are?
Well, I would say just about everything that I do falls under either comparative religion, because that's kind of my bread and butter. I love studying the Bible and the stories that we find in the Bible within the broader context of the ancient Mediterranean world, among the kinds of myths and legends and ideas generally that were popular then. And then the other category is counter apologetics, and oftentimes you have some overlap there, but these apologists who attempt to argue that the kinds of parallels that we find between Christianity and other legends in the ancient world, that's all irrelevant, or it's completely fanciful. It's not really there. It's not what it looks like, or just generally trying to make the case, as they do, that Christianity is true. It's just like, come on, man. I'm okay if with anyone believing it. I don't have a problem with anyone being a Christian. It's a free country. You know what I mean? Carry on, do what you want to do, as long as you aren't harming anyone. I don't care. But I mean, if you're gonna stand in front of a camera and a mic and try to make the case that we non-believers we're missing something, that there is good evidence for this, such that we ought to believe as well, that's when I'm going to come in and be like, I don't think so. No.
That's right. Yeah, we gotta say something. Like
We
one of
gotta
those
say
things.
something.
Yeah, recently, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've noticed that there's a lot more posts on social media where churches will display children and sort of like what I would label as maybe evangelistic or charismatic events, and I've seen like lots of kids on camera like crying and just all that. How do you feel about like now, like just being a non-believer now, having deconverted from Christianity? How do you feel now looking that? How do you see that now?
I have not actually noticed what it is you're talking about, but it doesn't altogether surprise me. I mean, yeah, use the old appeal to emotion. You know what I mean? And use children as your sort of line of defense. That's not cowardly at all. Like, that's not sick. Like,
I don't know.
I abandoned this stuff from a pretty early age myself. I mean, I think by the time that I was an adolescent, I was already very seriously questioning the religion that I grew up with. But it was only in later years that I became more interested in actually uh, studying the origins and development of the religion that I grew up with. So I shed this stuff. I can't say that I was a Christian believer well into adulthood. I wasn't. From a pretty early age, this stuff just wasn't it wasn't sticking, man.
Yeah. So it sounds like you deconverted pretty early on,
Yeah, yes,
right?
it did.
What
Yeah.
what inspired you to like get interested in biblical studies and comparative religion?
Golly, it was in my mid to late 20s. A close friend of mine sort of, I guess you would say he kind of converted back into the fold. And that made me curious. And that's when I began kind of looking into this stuff. Now, we're talking like early 2000s. So I get online and I find a lot of just pseudo intellectual, pseudo academic garbage, starting off completely on the wrong foot, reading like Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code and stuff like this. I mean, at least that sparked my interest, which is a good thing, but this was not yet good academic, scholarly work that I had discovered just yet. But it did lead me down that path. And eventually I did come to better appreciate and be able to discern what was good scholarly academic material and what wasn't. And so yeah, I just developed a fascination with that in my 20s, and I've been passionate about it ever since.
Wow, very interesting. And I'd say you're very fortunate to have realized that calling soon. And were there any specific moments where you were like, okay, I get all this and I feel that passion for sharing the knowledge that I'm getting and kind of helping others? But that moved you towards like, I've got to start a channel and I've got to get on YouTube and put in all this work and sacrifice.
That would be Derek Lambert of Myth Vision. That would be his encouragement and influence. I had devoted a chapter to an anthology that was edited by John Loftus and Robert M. Price. It was Varieties of Jesus Mythicism. And although I'm not actually a Jesus mythicist per se, but they wanted me to devote a chapter in that work on the whole dying and rising God motif in the ancient world. So I did that. And I think Derek, by way of that, became interested in some of my work. And I think he and I had also been linked up on social media because the two of us have a lot in common, actually, not just the name. And so we were already in talks. We were already chatting it up, becoming buddy old pals. And it was him that said, man, you really need to do this yourself. You need to start your own channel. So I abided by the will of the great one, Derek Lambert, and here I am today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that makes two of us. Tell us a little more about your journey. So you decided to be outspoken about your beliefs, and you put in a lot of work. I can see the amount of work that you put in your episodes, and somehow you're able to make the information palatable and interesting and funny. Like, what is your process? Walk us through what you do for those of us that are aspiring to be YouTubers or to just do this for ourselves.
Well, before I ever began YouTube, I was just deep into the study of this kind of stuff. So I read a lot of literature. I became familiar with the academic take on a lot of these different issues, and with what the primary source texts had to say themselves. Um, and was writing and blogging and just a lot of in-depth research, reading and writing before I ever picked up a microphone or popped on a camera. So I didn't come up the ranks in any kind of formal way. I don't have a an advanced degree in theology or history or philosophy or anything like that. I'm an autodidact. I've done this all independently. So I mean, you could say that I'm an independent researcher, of Christian origins and biblical criticism and ancient mythology and ancient religion. Um, so I kind of got the foundation down first, before I ever explored doing this, doing a YouTube channel. So that I think that helped a lot, so that whenever I did begin a channel, I was already conversant with a lot of this material and with a lot of these ideas and how to go about exposing these Christian apologists in a video format. It just kind of paved the way for me to be able to do something like this.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Have you tried to like engage people beyond YouTube, maybe like in person?
You're talking about doing like a face like a live debate or something like that?
Uh-huh, yeah.
I'm really not interested in doing that kind of thing for a number of reasons. First of all, it's really more performance art. Like, are you, when faced with a certain assertion or objection, are you going to be able to, on the spot, know what the proper response should be? You know what I mean? Or what the proper facts are, with regard to the argument that's being made. I'm the kind of person that I'm very methodical. I want to spend the time actually analyzing what it is they've said, and then what are the facts. What's the most reasoned, rational, logical approach to the topic at hand. I'm happy to concede if someone's right. 9 times out of 10, if you're dealing with an apologist, they're throwing a sidewinder in there somewhere. You know what I mean? And you may not be able to decipher what that is on the fly. So I like to be able to do more planning and more methodical type of work in my responding to someone. And a live debate just isn't terribly amenable to that kind of thing. And the other thing is, I think that in a dialogue, there has to be a level of mutual respect between you and that other person, and therein lies the problem. I don't respect what these people do. I mean, I respect that they are human beings, and I respect their right to believe as they do. But to me, the whole industry of apologetics is so inherently deceptive. It's such a malpractice. It seems to me that I I don't know any other way to say it. I frankly, I genuinely don't respect what they do. And so I don't know how it's possible for me to share a screen with someone, um, whose entire mo is just something I hugely frown upon. Yeah, I think I would just be disingenuous to sit there and act as though I have some level of mutual respect for what they do, because the simple fact of the matter is I don't.
Yeah, and even if you did, I think that because of the nature of what they do, it's like they're always having to like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot of dishonesty, and I'm always
Yeah,
having to. I've done a few debates, and it's like you're always having to chase fallacies with them, you
right,
know.
right.
And it's just
Yeah,
like they don't. Like they feel like they are entitled to use language whichever way they want to.
Hmm.
Um, and it may work for them. You know, you got a lot of people that don't really question, or they don't think, or they're caught up in like cognitive dissonance, that they're just hearing what they want to hear. But then when they come across one of us, it's like we almost have to like make them feel like you're a terrible person because of what you're trying to do. And
It's like
I,
that meme, that meme that says arguing with a Christian is like trying to play chess with a pigeon. They just,
wow.
knock the pieces off the board and shit on it, and then strut around like they won. It's like, if you're not playing by the rules, if you're not abiding by, like, I'll sit and watch Derek Lambert of Myth Vision has the patience to engage these guys, and kudos to him. You know what I mean? I think that's great that he's able to do that. But I just, to sit and listen to some of the things that these guys will say to him with a straight face, like somebody like Michael Jones from Inspiring Philosophy, to sit there and say, when you say, it acts like a duck and it quacks like a duck, so it's probably a duck. This is in reference to Christianity having all the appearance of an ancient myth or legend by way of analogy to other, strikingly similar myths and legends. Derek's whole point there, and my whole point there when I say that kind of thing is, yeah, it acts like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's probably a duck, right? It looks like an ancient myth. It doesn't have any frame of reference, any analogy to anything that we experience, in our in our everyday experience of the world. Um, you have a figure who conquers death, who ascends to the heavenly realm, who appears to others post mortem after his body has gone missing. I mean, yeah, this looks in Christianity like it looks like the kind of mythology you find in other Greco-Roman literature and so forth. For someone to sit there and say, when you say acts like a duck, quacks like a duck, I just don't understand what you're talking about. Really? You don't? Like, really? How thick-headed do you have to be to sit there and for that, something as simple as that, not to penetrate? Like, I can't have a conversation with you. You know what I mean? If you're that thick, I can't do it. It's just forget
Are
it.
they pretending? Are they just pretending? They know that they're talking about a character that is just like someone else from antiquity that same claims, Romulus.
I
You know,
don't know that they're yeah, I don't know that someone when they say that, if they're necessarily consciously aware of, like, are they deliberately lying or being dishonest? I don't know about that. I think that the cognitive dissonance is so extreme
it's
that
huge.
they can't see something that's just right in front of their face. And I've dealt with this a lot. I've dealt with this for years, debating. I used to debate other Christians on these online forums and whatnot. You can point out a blatant contradiction to them. You can break it down and explain precisely why these two passages contradict, and for the life of them, they can't see it. It's the craziest phenomenon to observe, and it's left me actually pretty jaded. It's like, why even try? When I make my videos, the target audience is I am admittedly preaching to the choir. I'm here to inform and entertain other non-believers. I'm not even trying to get through to any ardent, Christians, because I've given up on thinking that I can get through to them. Now, if there is someone out there who's on the fence, happens to see my stuff, and it helps them sort of shed the skin of fundamentalist belief or whatever, then great. I'm happy if that is a something of a, um, of a byproduct. I'm happy with that. But I'm not even like that Christians watch my videos and leave comments and get all perturbed. It's like, I'm not even making this for you. Like, you enter at your own risk. Like, I did not knock at your door demanding that you watch this. So, does it make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say like I really enjoyed your series on Dr. Faulk. Should we expect more of that in the near future from you?
What's that?
Should we look forward? Are we? Can we look forward to more of that in the future? Or
Not necessarily. He hasn't attempted to make any kind of response whatsoever since,
really?
no, he hasn't. And I said in one of my videos, and this was kind of a wink wink to him, you know, I said this is the last video because I did a series of them. And I said, this is the last video I'm doing on David Falk, and then I'm putting this to bed. As long as is because he's such a vile person. You know what I mean? Who wants
Mhm.
to deal with that guy? I said if he shuts up, then we'll put a fork in it. If he doesn't, then we'll pants this guy all over again. So I'm done with him as long as he keeps his mouth shut. Because he was just a disgrace.
Yeah. Well, in the event that there is more, I'm really looking forward to it. Sweet deal. Any other response videos that you've done that you've really enjoyed doing?
Oh man, I tell you, when it comes to these response videos, I'm very kind of seat of my pants. It just depends on what it is that I happen to come across in the course of my reading material and watching videos or scrolling through my feed. Something will come across. I'll happen to see it or I'll happen to read it, and I'll be like, oh my God. I
Mm,
have to respond to that. That's garbage.
I understand about that.
So a lot of the stuff it's not really planned or organized. It's not planned long in advance. It's just a matter of, whatever lays its rears its ugly head in front of me. And then I'll go to work on producing a response.
Awesome. If you were to kind of maybe provide us with like your go-to maybe top three reasons or however many you wish to share with us as to how Christianity fails,
Yeah,
what would those
sure.
be?
Easily. I mean, first and foremost, and I don't see how this isn't just the nail in the coffin,
Uh-huh.
right off the bat. The biblical God, the God of the Bible, Yahweh, does not exist. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that there is no God of some sort. I don't see any good reason to think so, but I'm not claiming absolute universal knowledge. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that I know for a fact that there is no divine realm or divine entity. But I am saying that the biblical God in particular, just like Zeus, just like Apollo or Mithras or Demeter, this is not this is not a real living entity. This is quite plainly a fictional character. This is a character who is, in ancient Hebrew texts, is clearly an anthropomorphic projection of mankind. I mean,
Mhm.
he has a physical body. All of the sort of primitive garb is there. This is a creature with a body who battles, monsters. Uh, I mean, he's bragging to Job about being able um, to take down a dragon. In Job chapter 41, Leviathan, I'm able to subdue a dragon. Can you do that, Job? Oh, you can't. Well, then shut the up. Right?
Right.
who is depicted in the Psalms as crushing the heads of Leviathan, very reminiscent of the old Canaanite myth of Baal and Lotan, or the Enuma Elish from ancient Sumeria, where Marduk splits Tiamat in half and makes one half the vault of the sky and the other the sea below. He is quite clearly depicted in these fully mythological presentations, fully mythological scenes. Because of course this is a fictional character that we're dealing with. He requires, blood sacrifice. He is he
He's
he's
obsessed with smelling sacrifice, burnt meat, barbecue.
yeah, he's pleased by the odor, the pleasant aroma of
Mhm.
burning animal sacrifices. This is a primitive fictional character from antiquity. You sit there and rationalize that any way that you want to, but this is clearly so. I mean, yeah, the fact that the biblical God does not exist, that this is a fictional character, that I don't see how you have any foundation after that. Like, well, that kills it right there. What's left? Um, there's the fact that Jesus was very likely an apocalyptic prophet, and he is depicted as predicting the end time in the very generation of within the lifetime of his own
That's
disciples, of his own followers. That's
Mhm.
that's clear from the text. The apologists will try and say, "Oh, no, he's referring to another dispensation, or that's just a reference to the Trinity that just so happens in the next scene." That's, by the way, that's probably why they stuck the whole or a reference to what did I say? Did I say the Trinity? A reference to the Transfiguration? Excuse me,
Mm.
because the Transfiguration follows in the next scene there. I think
Mm.
in Matthew, but it's clear from reading the text and looking at just the general context of the New Testament that they thought this was just around the corner. Jesus tells his disciples, some of you will still be standing here. Some of you will not taste death before you see the Son of Man returning, with his with his angels upon the clouds. He was wrong. If in fact he did say this, it's just we're 2,000 years past when that prediction should have come to fruition. It's if we were to examine any other cult, whether that's the Millerites who became the Jehovah's Witnesses, or no, the Millerites became the Seventh Day Adventist Church. Excuse me, or whether we're
Mm.
looking at similar predictions by Jehovah's Witnesses or what have you. We any rational person would say, yeah, that's a crock. I mean, that's that's clearly false. So there's that. I think that makes number two. And what would be number three? Goodness. Just I think the simple fact, based on what it is that I study and present, that all of this just it has all the trappings of ancient fiction, of ancient myth and legend. I'm not saying that there's no historical core to some of it. There may have been a real man, Jesus, who had a ministry, back in the 30s CE, and who was crucified under Pontius Pilate, and his followers bewailed his having been executed. But I mean, by and large, this is the stuff of myth and legend. When we look at other myths and legends from the ancient Mediterranean world, you can pretty well tell that this is all pretty run of the mill. This is consistent with what ancient people, with how they deified human beings, with the kinds of imaginative imagery that they liked to produce. So it looks like ancient myth and legend. The biblical God is a fictional character, and its predictions about Jesus' return were off by a long shot. I think the cumulative effect of realizing all of that just leaves you with the ineluctable conclusion that yeah, Christianity is false. Of course it is.
Even if there is a historical Jesus, does that change anything? Does Christianity still fail if there was a historical Jesus?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's irrelevant. Um, we know that there was a historical Augustus Caesar, as I was saying earlier, but nobody really believes that he was, the son of a god, or that he healed diseases and was able to control the weather, and that he ascended to heaven and so forth. Because we rightly recognize this as the stuff of ancient myth and legend. We're pretty certain there was a historical Apollonius of Tyana, as I was saying earlier, but nobody believes that he was miraculously conceived, or that he exorcised demons, or that he raised the dead, and that he also ascended to heaven and appeared to followers afterwards. Because again, what is sauce for these characters is sauce for Jesus. We recognize that this is the stuff of legend, and legend could easily attach itself to historical persons in antiquity. So yeah, that doesn't change anything.
Yeah, and if we, let's say we just look at the Gospel of Mark, it seems like the Gospel of Mark makes enough case by simply making the claim of the empty tomb, and that seems like is one of those things that gets used up as like this evidence of the resurrection by many apologists. And there is doesn't seem to be any evidence of Jesus' tomb anywhere. But let's say that archaeologists were to dig up a tomb that was purported to have been Jesus' tomb, and we find that tomb and it's still empty. Does that prove anything? Does that change anything? What value do you see to that claim?
Well, for one, I don't know how we could possibly know that a particular tomb belonged to Jesus historically. The simple fact of the matter is, most Jews who were executed in this way were typically placed in a shallow or cist grave. They weren't necessarily given a tomb unless they were particularly wealthy. That would appear to be the whole motive for Mark providing us with a story about a guy named Joseph of Arimathea, who was wealthy and was able to procure Jesus a tomb, because it would take a wealthy person to do just that. This seems to be a very convenient kind of fiction that is placed there in order to move the plot forward to a place where we can end with a tomb found empty. Why? Because that was what was expected in antiquity. If someone was divinized and became an immortal god in heaven, how would you know that? Well, because their body went missing. That's how the stories were told anyway. In the story of Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome, they go seeking after the body, and the body is nowhere to be found. Next thing you know, what happens? He's now an immortal god in heaven who appears to Proculus Julius and delivers a great commission for Rome and so forth before he ascends on high again. I mean, we find this in the story of Hercules. He mounts the pier upon which he dies in flames, and afterwards they seek after the body, and there's not a shred of anything to be found, because he's been taken up to the heavens to be among the gods as an immortal divine being. And that's what the resurrection of Jesus is in the New Testament. It's not just that he is restored to normal, ordinary, mundane life. It's that he has become a living, divine, immortal divinity. That's what the resurrection of Jesus is. And so that is signaled by a missing body, as it so often is in Greco-Roman and Hellenistic literature. There's no reason to think that this is anything other than the kind of mythic feature that we expect from such a tale in antiquity.
That's right. It's got all like you say, all the trappings of
Yeah.
ancient mythology. Would you leave us with maybe a bit of advice? Like, what would you say to someone that's just currently questioning their religious beliefs or considering a path of deconversion of some sort? What advice would you give?
Well, I mean, if someone is on the fence, I highly encourage them to question these things. Uh, you know, I would emphasize that it's okay to question. It's okay because when you're in that fundamentalist hive mind, when you're under the pressure of other Christians in your community, whether that be friends or family or both, there's a lot of pressure to stay in the fold and not question these things. I mean, that's what every cult does essentially. They discourage questioning, and I would encourage questioning. It's healthy to question, it's okay to question, and allow that to lead you wherever it may. You are on your own journey, your own individual path in life. Nobody else gets to tell you what to think or believe. Nobody. That's up to you entirely. So, question and allow those questions to nourish you and feed you. It's about the journey, not the destination. So, don't worry about where you wind up. You just you follow through on that healthy curiosity and skepticism and let it lead you wherever it may.
Yeah, that's right. Healthy curiosity. That's what it's all about. Definitely.
Mhm.
So, Derek, you've given us a lot of teasers. I feel like my audience is very likely to want to hear more about you. Where can we find you? Where else? Where can we see more of your work?
Naturally, you can find me on YouTube under the handle Atheologica. So I've got almost 100 videos on there now and just really enjoying the hell out of it. You can find a lot of good stuff there that is, like you said, both informative, entertaining, and oftentimes humorous. And then as far as social media goes, you can find me on jolly old Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call it now. Derreck Bennett, DerreckBennett. I'm a hoot to follow there as well. So yeah, social media and on the old YouTubes.
Perfect. And did I get the spelling right? I did get the spelling right. I'm sure.
That's the
Atheological.
correct spelling. You got it.
All righty. Well, Derek, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really would like to have you again sometime in the future. And so I hope this wasn't too terrible. Thank you so much for your time. And we're looking forward to a lot more of your content. So please keep
Thanks for
doing
having
what you're
me.
doing. Yes,
Will
sir.
do. Will do. This has been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark.
Awesome.